The other day, my students and I were working on a few case studies. A few of the students were confusing some of the concepts. I'd provide one or two pieces of what I thought was useful personal critique on their work, but it didn't always go as planned. Sometimes students would get defensive when they'd get feedback. They'd try to argue for their original answer, or they'd just kind of shut down and ignore what I'd suggested. It'd be frustrating to get into an argument when all I was trying to do was help the student learn, so I'd usually just move on to the next student. Sometimes it would make me want to avoid giving that student any help in the future. Some people do feel the need to defend their position before accepting any feedback. Others interpret feedback as personal criticism and get upset by what we say, even if we say it nicely. If we don't get students on side first, it can seem like a game of chess with move and counter move, rather than two people on the same side of a jigsaw puzzle working together to find the missing piece. So imagine you're sitting at breakfast and next to your rosemary mushroom sourdough you see a short curly black hair. You want to provide some feedback to the staff, so tell them, I think there's a hair in this dish. On one hand, some staff will be fine and get you a new plate. On the other hand, if you get someone on a bad day, it might escalate into an argument. Or worse, they give you a new dish, but this time with a little bit of added saliva. Instead, if we acknowledge the other's perspective first, we can help show that we're on the same team. It can diffuse any resistance and make people more receptive. We're trying to avoid overlooking efforts and perspectives and start using empathic communication instead. I'm less likely to get mushrooms with added spit if I take a moment to acknowledge the waiter's perspective first.
Excuse me. I'm really sorry. I know you guys are flat out and you've indicated the customer's complaint, but I think there might be a hair in my dish. I'm so sorry.
This isn't a silver bullet, but it does make the person more likely to receive the feedback in a positive way. From a motivational standpoint, if we think people understand our perspectives, it helps us feel like they're on our side. But feedback is just one example where empathy can help engagement. This approach also helps us motivate students for assessments and arduous learning activities. We all have some of them in our class, the lessons that are important but boring, or the assessments that are challenging but crucial. If we take students' perspectives when explaining these tasks, we can help them know that we understand what it's like. It can go a long way to say, now I know presentations aren't the most fun task and they do make quite a few people nervous, but we're doing them because we want you to be able to present really well in both interviews and presentations for the rest of your career. Empathy can be about what students might be feeling, say anxious about a presentation, or what they're thinking. And acknowledging what they're thinking, especially when it's wrong, is a useful step to promote learning. It's these false beliefs or misconceptions that cause students to go down the wrong path. Studies have shown that students hold on to their misconceptions if they're not properly debunked first. And this is true even after teachers give them the right answer. That is, giving the solution is not enough. We need to acknowledge what they were thinking, correct those misconceptions, and then give them some answers. So, students learn better when we first acknowledge current perspectives. So those of you who answered C for that question might be thinking that the Earth pulls more strongly on the moon because it's bigger. Is that right? And they respond better to feedback when teachers notice what they've tried to do. So Matt, you were trying to link this point to this piece of evidence, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Some teachers will just say, I understand what you're trying to do. This can show your intent to take their perspective, but it can feel a little cliched and doesn't check that you've understood correctly. Instead, asking the student if you've gotten their position can ensure that you're both on the same page. I can see you were trying to put these numbers into this formula, is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Checking your understanding of their intentions can help you focus your instruction. Once you've acknowledged their perspective, you can provide the best piece of information for that particular misconception. The problem is we know from Newton's third law that for every force there's an equal and opposite force, which means the Earth and the Moon must be pulling on each other equally. So now when a student is trying to make a certain argument, I acknowledge what they were trying to do and then help them make it. If you use this evidence here, it may not support your argument because the authors were trying to make a really subtly different point. But if you put it down here instead, it might help support this other point that you were trying to make. If they're attempting to solve a problem, I acknowledge the strategy they were trying to use and then help them get unstuck. If you use this formula, you'll get velocity, not acceleration. So it's really easy to confuse the two, but if you have a look over here at the formula sheet, they've got labels next to them. So maybe try putting the numbers into this formula instead. If we notice the attempts our students are trying to make, we can help them feel understood while also helping them learn the most from what we say.